And joining me for this just quick topic of mastering video technology. As she said, this is something that has become a reality for all of us, whether we wanted to engage in it or not with the current situation. And as we'll get into, it may back off when we are able to come back and be in person, but I don't think it's ever going to go away. So understanding and knowing how to embrace and master video technology is a skill that I believe we can all really find valuable in our day-to-day. So as a quick follow-up to that introduction, I always like to still include an introduction slide. There's just a quick overview that shows, when I was at agency, right now at corporate, and then also with government. Each of those three different sectors, when I was recruiting, I utilized some sort of video interviewing or video technology. And so a neat thing there, when I first got to start with City of Southlake, it was Spark Hire, which, you had to record yourself and then submit that video for hiring managers to review. So being on present and conveying yourself over video was really important in that. During agency, we found video marketing was a huge deal. So I was tapped to create videos and be on them to be able to spread the news about different types of opportunities we had. And then now in today's corporate function at Bain Company, I'm on a global team. I personally have only ever met my supervisor once because she works and lives in Boston, Massachusetts. And so being able to engage over video in just a general corporate business setting has become something that we start all of our days with video calls. And we have to be able to communicate effectively just to be able to maintain a high functioning work environment there. And just a fun side over on the far end, you can see the video technology experience. With that, it just shows a little bit of that video interview, Zoom utilization that's every day. And then some of what they mentioned, I did a little bit of acting in my day. If anybody ever watched one of those TV shows, there was a big one called Lost a few years back. That was one of the sites I was on site with an NBC TV show, and then just on making video marketing things was with Dallas HR at the top right there. So what we're going to go over today, I've split it up into three main sections. Just in general, why we should care about video. Just go ahead and sharing some statistics with us about video and where we see that engaged in the business and workplace. Mastering your video setup, so looking a lot more at the tools that you can utilize, and then some video etiquette. So how do we act on when we're on video? How do we portray ourselves in a way that's going to come across really professional and just really personable as well. And then we'll get into some questions and some general applications. So first and foremost, importance of it in the workplace. After just recently in 2020, some different surveys have shown that up to 94% of businesses claim that video conferencing increases their business's productivity. So that is a vast majority. 78% of corporate businesses use video teleconferencing to facilitate team meetings. Just like I was saying, I'm on a global team. We have to do that to facilitate meetings regardless. And then 89% of employees state that video conferencing reduces time it takes to complete projects. And so with all of these different data points coming in, businesses are seeing the value in video. And they, even in the interview process, are going to want to see, hey, are you someone that can utilize this and be a part of the team and really be able to engage and embrace that video culture? Because just in 2018, 2 years ago, already over 62% of businesses with at least 1,000 workers conducted video interviews. That's pre-COVID, pre any of this that we're working from home now. These were just up and coming numbers over 2 years ago. In a post-COVID world, that number has jumped all the way to 86% that are conducting virtual interviews to hire candidates during the pandemic. And some key takeaways. So what really does that data mean? So it means that utilizing those video tools effectively in the workplace is going to be a valuable skill. Your first impression, or even those sustained impressions, may even be over video. A lot of times that first interview may be a phone call. The second interview may be a video before you're ever able to meet someone in person. So those things, those times where you could just go in and shake a hand, look someone in the eye, and give that first impression, where I do see it still in this day a very valuable skill, it may not be the first impression you get to give on a regular basis. And also, you're very likely going to be asked to collaborate with team members via video in any of these workplaces that are starting to collaborate more utilizing the video in the workplace. But also, what does this not mean? The things that those statistics don't mean is that the future is only going to be video for all business interactions. We may be at a point now where this is the case, but I believe there will be a day where after COVID, we're going to go back into a workplace, maybe not all across the board, but I think there's going to be a mix. So fear not, I'm not saying that video is going to take over and be everything, but it's still very important. Person-to-person etiquette, no longer valuable. I don't think that it means that. I still think that all of those etiquette skills that we learned about how to interact with one another, look one another in the eye, communicate, listen, all of those, in my opinion, can really be transferred into video. And then on top of that, like I was saying, we're going to be back and working with people eventually. It may be a little bit until then, but eventually we will be back face to face. So that etiquette is still very, very valuable. And you must have the latest and greatest technology to look good and sound great. That is not what those statistics mean. I am a firm believer that really with all of the tools that you have right now at home, you can make yourself look great on video, and we're going to go over how to do that in this presentation. You don't need to have the nicest camera or the best lighting setup or professional training. That is all, that would be great, but it's not necessary. And finally, that you have to be perfect and pristine at utilizing video technology. That is not what any of that means. And especially in this time, I feel like we're at a huge grace period where everybody gets it. We're all jumping on this. We're all learning this together. And it's okay to laugh and smile. And when you mess up a little bit, just own it and move on. And we learn from those things. So you don't have to be perfect at it. But the most important thing is that we're just embracing it and we're giving it a chance and doing our best to learn those key skills. So let's get into mastering that setup. So lights, camera, action. This is something that I feel like Hollywood has said to us for a lot of years. It's what we think and we perceive as, someone that's going in the director's seat. And there's a lot of truth to this as to what we can do in today's age, but it's not quite lights, camera, and action. So if you were actually on a Hollywood film set, the commands that you would hear would be sound. They would yell back at you speed, meaning that it's ready to go. You'd hear lights striking, which means they are turning on the lights. Everybody looks good. And then you'd hear cameras and then rolling. The cameras are going. And so as you can tell from those commands, you have the camera command, the light command, and the sound command: audio, visual, and lighting. And so let's go over each of those sections, and that's what we're going to break down here. So camera, what is the ideal resolution you're looking up? What is that setup and the location of your camera? Because that's really important in the way that you're, seen by the camera. Framing, where do you place your face? Where in this little box that you're able to see yourself should you be putting yourself? And also, where should you look for the most part? Where is that eye line going whenever you're having a conversation, when it's just you and a piece of machinery, but everybody else can see you on the other end of the camera? Lighting, what is that ideal lighting? And what are the lighting just nuances that you want to avoid whenever you're setting up and giving yourself a good picture? And finally, audio. What are those audio best practices to make sure that you sound very crisp, very clean, and there's no distortion going on? So the first part, camera. So this is a picture of my setup. A little bit messy, but a little bit homey, still space to work around and see things. The thing that I want to show here is the eye line. And when I talk about camera, as you can see, I have a webcam and a desktop setup. You can make things work if you have a laptop, a webcam, or a phone. Whatever your video medium, you can still get all of these things going and make it look good in that direction. So first and foremost, the resolution. I ask that you try to get 1080p. If you can look that up or see that, that is what you're looking at right now for myself. This is in 1080p. And so the 720 would be the next minimum that I would say be okay. That gets a little more granular, but it's not terrible. If you're working in what's called, I want to say it's 410 or 480 I, that's where you start getting really, really granular. So whenever, if you do decide you want to buy a webcam or you're looking at a laptop, just look on there and say, do we at least have that 1080p resolution? Because that's going to be really, really good just to have a good, clear, crisp photo. You don't need the 4K or the 8K or any of that other fancy stuff that's really, really high end. Positioning. And so this is where I wanted to tell you about the eye line. And so if you notice in the photo, my eye line and where that camera is are just about level with one another. And so this is going to be one of your best practices. This is what's going to make it look like you're looking eye level with the people that you're talking to on the other end of the camera. And another piece there is to do your best to try to square your shoulders. It's okay to be a little bit tilted, but you really don't want to be completely sideways or for any reason just completely facing another direction. You know, it goes back to the etiquette piece. If you're talking and listening to someone, you want to be facing them. That camera are the people that you're facing. So square up your shoulders, look the camera, at least close to the camera, if not just right below the camera. And that way you're framing yourself in the best possible way to be seen on the camera. And for all of my Office fans out there, love this photo just because I get to see Jim. And let's talk about framing. And the first thing I want you to notice is that the photo of Jim has lines across it. So these lines are what's called the rule of thirds. And so what that is a photography framing rule. It's been around actually, I believe, since before the Renaissance, when everybody decided, hey, you know, we want to start painting things that focus on the background. We want to draw people's eyes in different locations. And when people realize, you know, where are people looking when they're looking at this canvas or looking at this photo, they realize really quickly there's 9 sections or 9 areas that are evenly divided in this grid format that you can see. And where they found are that the 4 intersecting points are where if something is in that location, that is where your eye is going to be drawn immediately. And so in an artistic way, you may want to be set up, you know, either on the line or in one of the, you know, side angles. But for the purpose of a video call, what they also say is that the total focus is drawn towards an object if it's in the middle column. So that's why it's really important to be lined up in the center of that column, because it's going to draw in the focus towards you so that the people that are watching you aren't super distracted on everything else. Now, if you were for some reason popping up different things or there were things that you wanted to focus on, you can move to either side and stay within one of those thirds, and the focus is going to go to where that is. So if y'all are able to see, you know, my little video here, you know, you may be able to see me, but if I was set up on this side, there's my entire drum set that's over here that you would be looking at. So now your eye line is going between the drum set. And so that's kind of the trick of being set up somewhere different on the video itself. And then where do you want to place your eyes? So if you notice, again, with where they aligned his head, the eye line is really close to that top third line. And so that's where you really want to try to position yourself. So if you're on a phone, if you're on any type of medium where the video is, try to picture that, you know, right about here and right about here are your 2 lines, if you're able to see my video right now. And you want to align your eye line with where that top third is. That's going to give you an extremely natural and just really palatable impression. You know, it just looks more appealing rather than if your head was at a bottom third and there's all this space up top, or, you know, if you were just off frame somewhere else. This is the best way that you're visualized for just being able to be seen on camera. It's the most natural feeling. And ultimately, what are we taking from this? Keep your eye line close to the top line and your body centered. That's all you really have to remember. So let's talk lighting. So I put up here the standard 3-point lighting, which no one is expected to have that. That is a interview technique that if someone is on camera, they're the focus point. If there's an interview or something happening and they really want to draw out a really pretty picture of that person, they're going to have 3 main lighting setups. But the most important one is what's called the key light. And so this is really the only light that you need to worry about. If you want to get really fancy and try to make yourself look super gorgeous on photo or on film, more so than you already are, then absolutely go and buy yourself, you know, a couple different lights, get them set up, look up standard 3-point lighting, play with it. But it's not necessary for your day-to-day interactions. If you at least have that main light that's coming in from an angle, either it could be on your right or your left side, that's what you really want to focus on. And so taking a look back at this photo, if you look at the right behind my right side monitor, you can see that I have it's a $15 lamp. I got it from Target. And what I'm doing is I'm bouncing the light off the wall and allowing it to come back into my face. And so that's what you're able to see right now. So if I were to turn off that light, which I just did on my video, you can see there's a lot more shadow coming down. It's not as bright. Everything kind of gets dimmed. But if I turn that on, all of a sudden everything is very flush. And an important thing here is that I'm bouncing that light off of a wall. So if you have a light just facing directly on you, it's going to be very harsh lighting and it's going to wash out a lot of what you see. But what you want to do is called diffusing the light. So that's what happens when you bounce it off the wall, it comes back at you. That's going to diffuse it and give you a nice glow, I would say, and really take away any of the shadows on yourself so that you're able to be very clearly seen on video. And so if we come back, most important light is the key light. Have at least one light that you're able to bounce or be able to diffuse it in some way that's coming from the right side. You want to bounce that light off. And then I would say almost more importantly than anything else, avoid sitting with some type of window or a very bright light source to your back. This is a very, very extreme example, but for those of you that, I've seen people set up with a window right behind them and it just washes out and just blacks out and shadows so much of your face that you can barely see, the other people can barely see you. And so whenever you're setting up, sometimes windows aren't going to take the light and it's okay, they're dim enough. I keep my blinds closed that are right up here and it makes it pretty well suited for this environment. But if you notice that you're getting really dark shadows on your face, just check the lighting that's behind you and see if that may be the cause, because that's really going to make it hard for people to focus on you and look at you and see you whenever you're trying to build that collaboration and build that rapport with one another. All right, let's talk audio. So on the audio side of things, the main piece here is that whenever possible, use a headphone or some type of a microphone. I say this because it allows for much more clear sound and it really diminishes any type of background or white noise that's going on. And so if you're using an open source microphone that's per se on your laptop or your phone, that's fine. But the way those microphones are set up, it's pulling in any type of audio from all directions. Whereas if you're using a microphone, it's designed so that the audio that it's pulling is very focused. It's only going to pull the audio that's right in front of you or right in front of the microphone itself. And so that way, it is not necessarily going to pick up so much extra noise, and it's going to be a lot more clear. And if you have Bluetooth headsets, I highly recommend setting them up ahead of time. You want to be able to select that audio and microphone sourcing from within your conferencing application. Make sure everything's clear. I see it a lot of times that whenever your Bluetooth is turned on and it's something that you use for multiple devices, that it sometimes will bounce on and off, and so you may lose audio every now and again. So just be cautious whenever you're using Bluetooth devices. I always say, if I'm using my headset, Bluetooth, I turn the Bluetooth on my phone off so that it doesn't snatch the Bluetooth away from my computer when I'm trying to pair it with the computer. You would think that in this day of age, it would just stick with where it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, it doesn't always do that. So just a quick word of caution if you do want to use those Bluetooth devices. And that's really everything on the mastering the video side of it. So now let's talk a little bit about video etiquette. And also just a quick thing, if anybody has questions or things that are coming up, you're more than welcome to put questions into the Zoom chat. We will have a section for questions at the very end that will go in, and we will definitely be going through those and answering them there at the end. And we can definitely pop back and forth and answer questions for the remainder of the time once we are finished up. But back to this on the video etiquette side. So a couple of the dark side of video calls. And what I say with this is just kind of the pet peeves. And when people get on, the issues that people have are just drive people bonkers whenever they're on video that I want us all just to be aware of so that we're not the reason that someone else is just holding their head and just wishing that they could get off the call. So the first one being just background noise and music. And so with this one, if there's people yelling in the background, music playing audibly, one big thing here, loud breathing. be aware of that. Be aware that these things will just really cause a lot of distraction, would be the best way to say it, for anybody that is trying to listen and pay attention to the conversation at play. Excessive background movement. And so with this one of the biggest pet peeves I've heard from people is when other people on the video that they're trying to focus on get up and move. So they're walking inside, walking outside, pacing back and forth in their room. And there's just all this movement going around because they're moving. I've heard from some people that that's been as bad as saying, they get nauseous or a seasick type of feeling because they're just watching this person walk around all the time. And so try to, stay in one place. And also people moving in your background. So anything that's just moving all over the place and getting everywhere, just any of that excessive background movement. And lastly, yelling. So microphones will do what's called clipping if there are too many decibels getting pushed through that microphone at one time. So try your best not to yell because it'll be very unpleasant for all the people listening. So let's talk about communicating effectively then, taking on the other side of that and getting away from the dark side of the video interview. So your visual presence. What you want to do here, sit up comfortably. There's no need to be a board. You don't have to be, extremely stiff and, engage your core and try to roll your shoulders back. But at least, pull the little line on the top of your head, be up, be engaged, or, you can be back in your chair, but just try not to be over and slouching or just doing really bad posture. Another thing would be, you would have good posture if you were in an interview or within somebody else in your presence. Try to have good posture on video as well. It comes across really nice. Looking at or very close to the camera when talking. And so I like to say, treat the camera as if it's a person, right? When we're talking to a person and having a conversation, we're not going to stare at the person directly in the eyes 100% of the time. That could get a little creepy sometimes. And so what we do is we look at the person, we may look around, we may look up, we may just naturally look away and then return to the person. But the one thing that we don't do is just look somewhere else and the entire time we're talking completely look away from them and not ever connect with them to their eyes. That's very unnatural. But what happens is because we have this picture of ourselves for the most part on video, we like to look at ourselves when we're talking. And in no personal interaction do we get the chance really to look at ourselves as we're having a person-to-person interaction. And so that's a very unnatural thing. It's not normal in your normal situations. And so as best as possible, try to frame yourself when you get on camera, but then stop looking at yourself. And I'll have a quick tip on an easy way to do that here in a moment on one of the next slides. Again, one of the other things, avoid fidgeting, picking at yourself, or excessively fixing yourself on camera. And so that could look like if you have like a scratch or, you see something or those, you get really close to the camera because you're looking at yourself and you're just kind of, not really paying attention, but you're kind of focused on yourself or how you look. There has been a story of someone putting on makeup while on camera. It's just do these things beforehand and have yourself ready and framed and ready to go before getting on camera, so you don't have to sit there and pick at yourself or worry about how you look. And again, another way to fix that is don't look at yourself on the camera and you won't really worry about how you look. And the last thing here is neutral or still background. So I like to say, have a tasteful decor. You don't need to necessarily have a flat white wall, but you want to have something that's either what I say, something that displays your personality, something that contrasts or brightens the room a little bit, but it doesn't distract completely away from you or what you're trying to say or what you're trying to do. So with myself, I've gotten in a few debates whether my drum set is too much, but I personally love it. Actually, when we first hopped on the call, I got to have a great conversation about drumming and percussion because it was there and it was a way to connect with the other person without me ever having to say that, hey, I am a drummer. It's just there. And if someone has a connection piece or wants to ask about it, you now have a conversation starter. So what I like to say, I'm going to pick on Neil here because I can see his video on mine. I can see a lot of books in the background. And so with that, if I were going to be having a conversation with Neil, I would maybe say, hey, I notice you have an awesome collection of books. What's your favorite book that you've read there? And now all of a sudden I'm able to connect with the other person on the camera and have a good conversation about something that's relevant. And you just start building those communication, just those links between one another. So audio presence. Speak normally as if you have the floor in a conference room. So you don't need to, you don't have to whisper. It's going to be really hard to hear people here. And obviously you don't need to yell because that's going to start clipping your microphone. But just as you would talk in a normal room, talk on camera. That's how the microphones are designed. And that's how it's going to come across best. Mute yourself when others are talking or when you may have background noise around you. And I can tell everybody this is a pretty standard thing that I think a lot of people understood when we first got into this section. I could see everybody here went on mute pretty immediately. And it's a great way just to make sure that there's not going to be any distractions or noises or someone walks into the room and says something. If it's not your time to talk, then you don't have to worry about that coming in if you're just muted, if you don't have anything to say at the moment. And then also just control and quiet the noise that you have power to control. So if you have music that you like to listen to, I personally have my Pandora station that I listen to all the time. Turn it off before you get into a meeting. Or if you know that there's going to be people running around or that the back door may open for someone coming in, as best as possible, move to a room that you're able to keep quiet or, be able to close a door or ask the people that are around you just to say, hey, I'm going to be on a call. Just communicate that just for 15, 20 minutes, just try to be a little more quiet as best as you can. I know there's situations where it's just impossible, but if you can at least do your due diligence, it goes a long way. And then ultimately stay engaged. And so act as if, in all the same ways, as if all the people that were there were in the room. And so, if you were actually in a meeting, you wouldn't be completely disengaged off doing something else. You wouldn't be over here having a side conversation. You'd be listening and be engaged with the people that are there. So if you're on video and you're listening, show that. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. You can actively listen. As you're there, a lot of times the presenters and the other people that are talking can see your video on camera. And so actively nod, smile, react as if you were in the conversation with them. And it just draws people in together. It shows that you're listening and engaging with one another. And then also just as best as you can, stay in that one location. If you need, if you have water, if you're going to be thirsty, prepare everything that you need beforehand so you don't have to be getting up and down or putting yourself off video, on video, and having a lot of that movement. Try your best just to stay there as best as possible. And then a quick little pro tip here. And so with this one, I took a quick picture here, and this is how I manage to, for the most part, stay looking at the camera or near the camera at almost all times. And so right now there should be, even on y'all's end, you can practice this as I say it, there should be a little button that has, a thin line, a slightly bigger line, and then a slightly bigger line that shows expanding to have a full view of all the people that you can see, or shrinking it down to where it prioritizes a picture of only the one person that's talking. And so whenever I'm on a call or a presentation, I'll always minimize it to say, I only want to see the person that's talking, and I'll move that image right under the camera. And so that way, whenever I'm looking at the person talking, I'm not necessarily always looking right at the camera, but I'm looking so close to the camera that it looks like I'm looking at the camera. And because that eyesight is so close, it just looks very natural as if I'm holding and looking, at that person right in the face. Whereas if I was looking way down somewhere or looking up to another screen to try to be able to see that person, it doesn't look when they look at me like I'm looking at them. And so again, we're trying to recreate what it's like to be communicating in person at all times. And this is a great little pro tip that you can implement even just right now to put that image right up under your camera, wherever your camera is, and be able to see yourself if you really want to look at yourself or the person talking, and also look like you're staying engaged the entire time. All right. And so going into a few resources and review. So a quick recap of everything here. Your ideal setup. Let's have that video camera with at least that 1080p or greater resolution. That can be on a laptop, a webcam, or a phone. We want that light source behind the camera. This can be as easy as a $5, $10, $15 lamp that you're bouncing off a wall, or just something that you can put there that draws a little bit of light over on either the right side or the left side of your face, and avoid those really bright light sources like windows or bright lamps and lights that are right behind you that are going to wash you out. And with the audio input, if you have the ability, invest in a headset, earbuds with a microphone, or anything that has, the ability to wear and then have a microphone in front of your mouth if you can. And then your ideal presentation, try to have that quiet and controlled environment. You want to frame your face along the top lines of that, the rule of thirds. So have your eye line right there and make yourself right in the middle of it. Sit square to your camera, so your shoulders and your face are looking directly at the camera and directly then at the people that you're engaging with. Speak clear and firm, just as you would if you were talking normally in a room full of people. And stay engaged during the call. Try to make sure you're active listening, looking, smiling, interacting, using the chat function, asking questions if you have them. It really goes a long way to be back and forth with all of those functions. And so thank you, everybody. That is everything that I had here ready for y'all. And so right now, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and either y'all can come off mute and ask them, or if you want to type it into the Zoom chat, I am more than happy to read that back and answer, or go back anywhere on the presentation to answer those questions. So we got the first one here. Do we have any suggestions for overhead lighting? And so with overhead lighting, I like to say it's good to have it. Right now, the screen that you're looking at for me, I have my overhead light on and I have my front key light on. And so what I see as the overhead light is it can be either the yellow light or the that white light. It really doesn't make a difference in that end. Usually the light is far enough away, and plus it gives a nice overview of the entire room, so it gives you a lot of that wraparound light. It just really comes down to sometimes the overhead light is enough, and you can keep that and you look fine, but if you notice that you're getting any shadows that are coming in from the top end and you really want to get rid of those, that's where I'd say try to put in that key light somewhere, and that'll get rid of a lot of those shadows, give you a nice glow. Again, I'll turn off my main light here, and this is what it looks like in my place with just the overhead light. As you can see with the light coming down, you see a little bit of a sheen right here, the reflectiveness, there's some shadows, and then all the shadows are coming down from the bottom. And so by turning on that light, it fills in all of that and you look a lot more natural. All right, should we close the blinds if a window is directly in front of you? And so if it's in front of you, which means behind the camera, I'd say play with either one. Natural lighting that is coming in from in front, it can either be extremely harsh or it can be, quite nice. And so depending on if, the sun's coming directly in and you're getting that direct sunlight straight on you, that may be washing you out a little bit. And so get on camera, look at yourself, see what that looks like. And then a lot of times if you close the blinds, or at least find a way that the blinds are sort of closed, or if you have a very light sheet, there's a name for the curtain, sheer curtains. If you have sheer curtains that you want to pull closed that just at least do what's called diffusing the light, a lot of times that's going to be plenty of diffusion to have that make it look really, really natural, because ultimately natural light is the best light. It's very wraparound. It looks really good. Just make sure you're managing how much of it's coming onto you. And does it matter which side to put the key light on? No, it does not. So at that point, it's complete preference. Depending on the light that's around you, if you have maybe a window that's coming in and giving extra light, if there's another bedroom, just depending on your situation, try it on both sides because one might actually look better than the other. But you're not going to know unless you test it out and try it and see. But technically, even on the professional side of things, absolutely not. It does not matter what side the key light is on. All right. And what about the light causing reflection onto your glasses so that eyes are obscured? Let's see. I see you, Neil. With that one, a lot of that can be done with angles. And so if you, I'm a big fan of pool. And so I like to think of it with like a pool analogy. So if you're wanting to, hit something into a corner, you want to hit it on an angle so that it pops another angle. The same thing's happening with lighting. And so per se, if I were to have a light that was coming in right in front of me and I were to have glasses here, that light is going to hit and then reflect back into the camera. And if I would say practice with it, because a lot of times if you move the light or if you move the camera around a little bit, you can find an angle where there's not going to be a major reflection. And so because the way that the light is hitting is going to go across the camera lens and not back into the camera lens. So that would be the best thing there. All right. And so how do I move the speaker screen? And so let me see. If the speaker screen, so I'll show y'all what I can see right now. So as far as I know, usually when I'm on y'all's end, there's a little, it's usually a much skinnier section. And there's a button here at the top right that has the, a small little sliver line, a slightly larger line and a bigger line. And if you grab this top bar, and if this bar is completely covering the screen like this, a lot of times if I double click the top, it'll go back and forth just like I did there, and then you're able to grab it. And so that may be the best way to be able to move that. Let's see. And then I got can everyone see the PowerPoint? Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. Everybody's good there. All right.
Christopher?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Allison, and I actually had the question about moving the speaker screen. So right now you're sharing your screen with us. And so I have just you on the right side of my screen, and it's kind of small. And I thought what you were saying was that there was a way to drag that image closer to where my laptop's camera is in order to have, to have it look like there's better eye contact.
Yes.
My question was, I cannot see how to drag the single image of you anywhere. It's just showing you, in the center on the right of my screen. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
And so when you see that, I know I'll move this back over here. Generally, there's the presentation that's behind it, and then you have the little sliver that you're talking about. And it on that sliver on the top, does it say Zoom meeting, or does it have this section right here?
Maybe it's because we're in screen sharing that it's not.
Okay, I will say okay, I might have to try to get back to you on that one, or I can have oh, no worries. And so I know when
no worries. I just was trying to clarify my question, but I'll play around with it.
Yeah, there should be a way. I will say this: I always do it when other people are screen sharing, and so on a Zoom meeting, whenever I am doing that, it's when I'm the person that's not sharing my screen. And so that's why I wish I could show you, but because I'm sharing my screen, it makes it a little bit different view. But I can at least guarantee you, I know there's a way. We just need to play around and see if there's a setting in there that maybe needs to be set up or anything along that line. But I do want to give you confidence that there is a way to move it. We just got to figure out how to do it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions?
Is everyone good? Okay. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you, Chris, for joining us this afternoon. This was a wonderful presentation.
Absolutely. And thank y'all all so much. This is, I love getting to spread this news. Y'all are an amazing audience. I love that we had chats and questions coming in, and I really hope that y'all had some really great takeaways that we could pull out of it and just make it that much more so that you're mastering that video technology. Thank y'all so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.